Do we have our participants now joining us? And if so, we get started?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our panelists. Welcome to GSA and Grown Sustainably in Africa session, opportunities and the strategies to increase local sourcing in Africa. I have a problem with my screen. Okay. Before James takes over, thank you, James, for this opportunity. I am going to take you through GSA quickly, Grown Sustainably in Africa. What GSA is, what we do, and how we work with the companies that we have in the panel today. We see ample opportunity in Africa and to support a viable and inclusive agriculture transformation on the continent, looking at leveraging land holding, meaning we have over 60% of arable land, or the world's arable land, in Africa. We have 70% of our population mainly in agriculture and the agri-business. We have over 35 billion USD of food being imported into Africa. And this, of course, is an opportunity for the companies we have in this panel, for smaller farmers and for the SMEs. Therefore, together with Dalberg and IDH, we've been working in the past 2 years. We've been working in the commercialization and improving agriculture transformation in Africa. We have 3 segments that we look at: globalizing local companies, SMEs and smallholder farmers, being linked to international markets, being linked to the African market, being linked to professional businesses to commercialize their operations and to develop sustainable, inclusive and viable or economically viable supply chains. And here also we work with localizing global companies. So this will be DSM to Nestle, Unilever, and many other international companies, as well as African companies, to invest and to source more and more from Africa. And most importantly, looking at the building ecosystems where we have financial institutions, obviously service providers, fintech, to name a few. Grown Sustainably in Africa was launched in 2018, and we launched it specifically to support and solve a business problem. The business problem we have today is to increase local sourcing in Africa. We know most of the products and goods that are sold on the African continent are imported, but we have the companies we have here are increasingly increasing their sourcing in Africa. We know over $15 billion of raw material of food and beverages is imported into Africa, and that will absolutely lead to cost of transport, forex risk, and high cost to trade, and of course to drive the business case for local sourcing. We have a significant social value to drive job creation and food security, while of course improving environment and climate impact. For GSA, we in this partnership, together with all these companies, we seek to identify the market demand, basically working with the brands, retailers, and trading companies to select and support the SMEs on the continent that will specifically work with smallholder farmers. This would lead to guarantee offtake and develop the commercialization and impact, and of course to increase their capabilities in terms of being able to produce food and ingredients that can be sold to these companies at a price competitive, quality, and of course the volumes. Here we do specifically providing technical support and developing market and finance meaning affordable finance, which is extremely important in this case. So far, GSA initially we planned and we targeted over 100 to 150 million yearly offtake from off-takers. We have 80 SMEs and 300, it's supposed to be 300,000 smallholder farmers. We're planning to partner, and we partner with financial institutions. One of those institutions and financial institutions is the Farm Fit Fund, an IDH Farm Fit Fund. We also have 30 to 50 million donor funding that we are targeting to be able to support aid these operations. In 2019, we had Unilever, for instance, committed to $25 million in terms of offtake. We started working with initial 5 SMEs, and those SMEs, of which we have at least 2 in this session. We have several relationships being developed with the Farm Fit Fund, as I mentioned, and of course to work with the various and significant partners that will be able to support us. Together with Dalberg and IDH, we've made seed investments to TA, and we started working specifically with the companies to be able to support their operations and professionalize it in a way that they would be able to supply these companies. So far in 2020, we have now partnered with Nestle, and we partnered with Africa Improved Foods, of which we have FOCO from BSM. These 2 companies, of course, with their commitment, will be able to support to increase local sourcing and to increase the amount of money that will be going to SMEs and smallholder farmers. We have the inclusion of about 30 SMEs, and most importantly, from IDH side and Dalberg, we have invested, IDH has invested in grant money to the SMEs about $700,000 US. So far, the Farm Fit Fund have committed or will make money available about $10 million in total, which will go into these initial companies that we have selected. So if we look at the work that we're doing, we are actively seeking new partnership, obviously from off-takers, from the smallholder farmers, from the SMEs, and the support we need with formalizing and making the program a success. We need support from the donor communities as much as possible. James, I will stop there. Back to you.
Thank you, Keba, and thanks for that great introduction to GSA program platform, the work IDH has been doing. It's been a pleasure as Dalberg to collaborate with you in this journey targeting the improvement of local sourcing and the creation of opportunities thereof. To push that conversation forward, firstly, just by way of reintroduction, my name is James Mwangi. I am an executive director of Dalberg, and I'm really privileged to be serving as the moderator for the next session, where you'll be hearing, for the next part of this conversation, we'll be hearing from the people actually in the trenches of investing in or supporting or engaging with local sourcing, or themselves, more importantly, actually running those enterprises that we are so keen to hear from and learn about. And I will have each of them kind of engage in turn, rather than do an initial introduction, in part because I do want to get to the richness and to have their content to produce them rather than than try to do a poor job of the same. And I'll start with you, Foko, given your work with DSM. And for you, local sourcing is of course core to your business model and crucial. How are you thinking about it? What are the investments you're making in it? What is your journey in local sourcing in Africa to date?
Yeah, thank you very much. As Keba already said, I work for DSM. DSM is one of the investors in Africa Improved Food, so that's my relationship to the topic. If you see that, and it was already mentioned by Keba, there's a lot of food imported onto the continent, and there's actually no reason why this happens. What we see is a couple bottlenecks in the growth of the production of food. We see one bottleneck is that there's a huge volatility and a huge uncertainty in the supply chain. And we need to deal with that. Uncertainty and volatility means that nobody is investing to their maximum potential right now. And the second challenge is distribution. And that's distribution from the inputs to the farmers, that's distribution from the farmers to the factories, that's distribution from the factory to the end consumer. Now, I will not bore you with the end consumer, but it does start with that end consumer. And I think that's the big shift that we want to make, is we want to make the shift from a push where the agriculture is center of the intervention and center of the start of the transformation to the pull. And we see that there's a big opportunity for a food industry. Food industry in a continent, the fastest urbanizing continent on the planet right now, the distance between the consumer and the producer is lengthening. So we need to have products with an extended shelf life. We need to have safe products to the market. And there's a role for a food industry. And food industry is also a constant buyer. And that's where the volatility and the uncertainty for the farmer gets taken out. So if you see Africa Improved Foods buys around about 40 million of agricultural raw materials, dollars per year, and is a constant buyer. And that means if the farmers supply, AIF buys. And we need more because there's not enough yet. Now, there were a couple of challenges in that system. One of them was a quality challenge where we saw that there's high levels of aflatoxin. Because of the fact that we take the uncertainty out of the chain, you see that farmers can improve. So where in the first season we rejected 90%, 90, we now reject 6% based on aflatoxin contamination. Huge change, only achieved in 2 years. So we see that the food industry in agriculture in Africa needs a boost. Food industry will take out the volatility for the farmer, takes out the uncertainty out of the whole value chain, and then allows others to come in. So we have now worked out with Grow Sustainably in Africa a 3-year partnership in collaboration with Yara, Syngenta, IDH, to promote the productivity and the quality of maize. And the aim is to reach 50,000 smallholders. Right now we are about at 35,000 smallholders, and we want to increase that to 50,000 smallholders in Rwanda. That will supply our value chain. And we see that as a much larger scheme where in the coming 5 years, we want to invest about 300 million in production in Ethiopia, in Kenya, Nigeria, and in Zambia. And there ramp up the amount of smallholders that will be involved, going to hundreds of thousands of smallholders that will be involved in our supply chains. And there change the lives of smallholders. The fact that there is money coming through the value chain allows players to come in. It makes it attractive for Yara, Syngenta, and others to come in because now they know that there's money coming through the value chain. So all of a sudden, it becomes a business opportunity and it becomes a distribution opportunity for them. And I think that is the message. We need to start moving away from a focus on agriculture as a standalone silo into an agri-food system thinking. And there we have a pull rather than a push. I would like to leave it with that, James.
Thank you, Poco, for setting us off so effectively and really focusing us on the role of the market in all of this, thinking about the end consumer, moving from a push off the farm to a pull from the consumer and from the needs of the market. Yamisi, as the founder of Saltree and having worked in this space for a long time, much of this is not new to you, I have no doubt. I think it would be fantastic, as we've heard from Poco, thinking about how a company like GSM is looking at this opportunity in terms of what their role can be, and talking about millions of dollars of investments or complex value chains. That all can feel quite distant. What is the experience from the other side? What has been your experience working with MNC buyers when you're a small and growing agricultural business? And what would you wish that the large multinational buyers who are a key anchor in this market understood better about the constraints and challenges you're facing or the opportunity that you're seeing sitting in Nigeria in your market?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure being here to share our learnings in the last 10 years of being in this business. We are in the business of producing food-grade starch and other derivatives from cassava. And cassava is a very peculiar crop. It's slightly different in nature to grains and other vegetables that are commonly used by the multinational. So it has its own dynamic nature. One of it is that it is a one-year crop. Even though it's not a cash crop, but it is a one-year crop. Unlike if you are comparing it to cocoa, it's a 2-3 years crop that have very high-end value. It's also a very low-value product. So, and it's also full of water. So with all this dynamic nature, it's slightly different as a raw material as compared to whether maize or wheat or cocoa or any of those other crops. We started using cassava about 10 years ago to produce food grade starch for Nestle, and then later Unilever, PepsiCo, and some other companies that use it for their raw material end. And we work with smallholder farmers. As a business, we decided we wanted to work with smallholder farmers. So it was a goal. It's a major goal we wanted to achieve, and I'm happy that we are doing just that. For this crop, it's a crop that you need more land, because at the time we started, we used to have average of about 10 tons per hectare with a starch content of about 20%, meaning that you need for every 1 ton of starch, you need to have a minimum of about 5.5 average tons of cassava to produce 1 ton of starch. Unlike if you are comparing with maize or corn, then you barely need just about 1.5 to produce the same amount of product. So you need more land, and that's where the constraint is. Farmers need to plant big farms to be able to give us the required amount of input that we need to be able to produce our day-to-day products. So the first problem we faced was farmers having lands that were gone in terms of nutrients. And so where you're expecting a 30-ton yield, you get a 10-ton. So we had to start to work with farmers to train them, to provide all the capacity building they need, to change their mindset to producing this crop for as a raw material instead of producing it for food, which they are used to before we came in, and then also providing all the nutrients, the fertilizer, the herbicides, and also fully mechanizing the farm for the farmers to be able to produce bigger farms to meet industrial use. Prior to this time, cassava was more of a food crop where they just plant a few, 1 plot or 2 plots just for food. And now they need to plant a minimum of at least 5 hectares per farmer to be able to sustain the factory. it was really a big challenge. So one of the major challenges we faced was the fact that farms were out of nutrients. The farms that were available have been used over 20 years, and the farms had no nutrients. So we had to start by providing nutrients. Later we saw that, oh, if we have to expand, then farms have to be cleared. We needed to now get farmers to move to the same plot of land, same environment, and clear new land. Now, the banks don't provide funding for land clearing. In Nigeria, one of the biggest problems we had as farmers or as manufacturers of products using smallholder farmers is there are no funding and chain for new lands to be cleared. And for as long as farmers continue to farm on the same one plot of land, one, he will not grow economically. Two, for every year he plants on that same land, his yield is reducing. In fact, he just gets poorer and poorer. So we saw it as a challenge, and then started talking to donors like IDH and other donors to say, come, if we have to really have farmers improve their livelihood, then we must find a way to increase the land available to them, good land available to them, so they can do crop rotation, they can leave this land fallow and plant soya and be able to have an alternative land to plant. And if we also have to increase our capacity, then we need to bring more land available to farmers. Thank God for FarmFeed that came up with an option where we can now have a form of a collateral funding where we can borrow against such collateral. Then we can say we want to use it to clear land, and such funding is available. So we found that as major problem. Two was availability of fertilizer. I mean, fertilizer blend for cassava is very specific because cassava needs its own nutrients, totally different from what maize needs. Fertilizer needs a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is not in the usual blend. So we have to ask that fertilizer companies blend special fertilizer blend for our farmers to be able to grow cassava with high starch content. Because most of the time, this cassava comes in with very low starch content. And what it means is I will need to use about 7 tons to do a ton of starch. So you continue to struggle with yield and then starch content. So we also have struggling with getting manufacturers special to do special blend of fertilizer using the real nutrients required by tubers to be able to produce higher starch in the farms that are being produced by the smallholder farmers. Again, one of the major problems that we think that multinationals need to understand how dynamic cassava is that it's very laborious. It's a 1-year crop. Unlike maize, in 3 months you are done. You just spray your maize once. If you like, you can weed it once. If you like, don't weed it, you are good. For maize, for cassava, it's 1 solid year. So you have to spray like 2 times, you have to weed like 2 times or 3 times for the farm to be clean. Farmers can't wait 1 year to get a revenue. So we're struggling with, okay, what can farmers do in alternative? How can they get some form of revenue before this crop comes out? Yes, some innovative ideas are coming up, which are introducing to farmers to be able to say, okay, while you are waiting for 1 year, you can have this crop to harvest. We're trying to introduce vegetables and all of that so that female farmers can get interested. We can woo female farmers to do more so they can get their vegetables to the market in 4 days and they can feed their family with it while they are waiting for cassava to come out. But this is another major challenge that we have faced, growing the crop as a cash crop, as it were.
That sounds like a very good segue. The challenge of both the long cycles and the challenges of actually getting to scale, because I imagine between the challenges of behavior change with your farmers, as well as the very real difficulties around the nature of cassava as a crop, etc., it means that how you think about the path to scale and the duration to scale is different. And Christian, sitting as head of supply and plantations at supply chains and plantations at Unilever, for you, scale is a byword. You need scale into your supply chain. How do you think about the potential? How that they can eventually get there, but it may take time. How do you think about that balance and that thinking around patience and creating the space to ramp up production in often initially challenging conditions. Before you can
Yeah. So can you hear me, James? Okay.
I can. Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you, James. Of course, it's a very good question.
And Christian, if I may interject, just with sincere apologies, Christian, just one point of order to all participants. Please feel free to drop any questions that you have into the thread. I think on the side of your screen, there's a tab for questions, and you can put questions in there that we will begin to pose to all of the panelists as we move forward. My apologies for not raising this earlier, and my greater apologies to you, Christian, for interrupting you. Please continue.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. I think that, again, thank you very much for having me today and to be with, amongst colleagues and partner, because we have two partners on the panel. So we have a very simple problematic. I'm not going to be elaborating too much about it. So there's few data points that we need to know. The first one is 90% of the products that we sell in Africa in our factory are made in our factory. And this is important because it's a local for local operations. The point is only 40 to 50% of the inputs are local. That means that 60% is basically imported. And this is very complicated for us, especially on this COVID time, where the logistic around the planet has been a bit complicated. So the strategy is very simple. We want to change that radically, and we want to buy as much as we can product in Africa. So there's 2 or 3 points that I would like to share with you. The first one is, buying a more agricultural product in Africa will definitively help us, for our brands and to get our brands much more affordable. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is, so that's something that we want really to go for. The second one is we want to develop the local partner, or local supplier, because the product made in Africa for the Africans have to be clearly made out of a local supplier, more flexible, and of course developing a local industry. Without talking about the fact that this is impacting, of course, the need of forex, that the different companies are needed. So today we basically putting few projects together. We again, thank you very much to Dalberg and of course IDH, because without them nothing would have been possible. So we define different product that we need. Cassava, of course, one of the products out of cassava, which is the sorbitol, is something that we are very involved in. And I just want to say thank you very much to my colleague for that and my partner, because I guess that in January, Q1 next year, this is going to be a reality. We're going to be able to source, from Nigeria, for our oral care business in Nigeria. But we're doing as well development with a company in South Africa where we're using onions, but as well flake products, and spices that we develop together with Wenticel. And in that case, this is going already directly into the savory products that we're saving we're producing in Africa. So that's the 2 projects I can talk about. This is giving us a big advantage when it comes to forex, proximity, flexibility, but as well, local supplier development. The challenges we have are, is basically, the supply base is not yet there, and the partner are, pretty struggle, mainly in two angles. The first one is the quality of the products that we required. That's the first one. The quality is not always, up to the standards. And the second one is the reliability of the product that we need, because when we start sourcing from a supplier, we have no other options. We have to 100% of the flow that we're going through is important for us. So we can't have some stoppage into the supply chain. The point we have today is most of the partners that we're working on today are caught into a low value trap, and they cannot really upgrade the quality of the product very often, and not because of the willingness, mainly for two reasons. The first one is basically having flow out, and having more people buying product for them. That's from them. That's the first point. The second one is and this one sustainably, with a very good business model. And the second one is the technology, but as well the expertise that we can bring to the picture. So when you look at the different options to develop, as you have asked me the question, there's the partnership that we have with IDH and Albert, which is bringing funds, because that's very important. We need to make sure that the funds help them to upgrade and to increase the capacity and the capabilities on the grounds. We can bring from Unilever, we can bring to the partner, the expertise from all around the world, because we're buying product around the world, and we want to make sure that we develop in Africa the source of tomorrow. And the last point is to make sure that they have a sustainable way of operating, a nice and efficient business models. So we have decided to be on two fronts. The first one is having projects that will definitively bring value to the partner, but as well to the organization. I think that I just named only two out of it. We still have 8 to 10 projects into the pipeline for tomorrow and after tomorrow. The second point is we want to make sure that we help in the funding, and we are involved personally in a funding system named FarmFit. IDH will recognize it, which is basically showing that it's more than wish. It's we really putting the skin in the game, and then we really want to make sure that we develop the supply of tomorrow. And then we definitively want to make sure that the offtake is guaranteed from Unilever when the quality and the competitiveness of the price is there. So and this is going to help us to be much more local, much more close to the market, much more affordable, and of course developing the local talent and as well local supplier. We have been suffering about the fact that we are not local enough, in this COVID crisis. We're still suffering about it, and then we're accelerating, the localization, which is now part of the full strategy. It's not nice to have; it's a must-have for the business today, knowing that 90% of the product we're selling in Africa are made in our manufacturing in Africa.
Great. So on the one hand, Christian, thank you for that. On the one hand, it's exciting to hear about that localization. I think there's still that challenge, which hopefully we'll come back to, of as these interventions are helping get us, a few hundreds or a few thousands of farmers going in different settings. That time we need to get to the tens of thousands, and the economics of that is something that we might come back to. But I do want to, having looked at that side of things, Mahatma, I wanted to come back to you as Managing Director of Wensleydale Farms. How is actually experienced on the ground? So what is the impact? What is the impact, and indeed, what might some of the particular challenges be that the real farmers, real employees on the ground are experiencing, and what a program like this can do to address those challenges for a Nigerian or a South African farmer, in your experience?
Thank you very much, James. As Christian has already said, we as Wensleydale, we have already started on a project where we grow some of the onions and sauce and the spices as well, to be able to dehydrate and supply to Unilever. However, that has not been a project without challenges as well. And I think the main challenge, if I can articulate to your question, is that, to get onions and to buy from commercial farmers, because South Africa is well developed in terms of the commercial farmers. That sounds easy because they're already there. Now, the issue here is that the kind of onions that we're supposed to source in terms of the dehydration, they are not in existence in South Africa. So one of the things that we then needed to do was to make sure that we get the varieties in, and we do try and make sure that those varieties are grown specifically for this particular issue. We have done that, and some of the farmers that we are working with are at a commercial scale. However, what has happened, and that was a very painful learning, is that when the market started giving the farmers high prices, they then started going for the commercial markets and selling, to the open markets, because there they could get more money. We don't want to be focusing on the commercial farms. We want to be growing our supply chain using, a lot of small scale farmers. And the kind of challenges that small scale farmers have in South Africa will probably be the same as in Africa. When you look at it, is that most of them, they don't have land, they've got small pieces of land. So scalability already becomes a problem. In order for us then to get scalability, we introduce what we call block farming, where we then put a number of them in one area to actually do the farming aspects. One of the learnings that we then grabbed very earlier on is that you then require an aggregator who understands the dynamics locally. But what you then find is that both the aggregator and the farmer themselves, or the local farmers themselves, they lack in terms of skill, in terms of giving you the right quality that you want. The farming itself is not up to standard. For example, a hectare which could give you a better yield they will deliver half or less than half, because of the way they space, the way they grow, and in most cases, the quality that comes out. So our involvement with IDH has been very clear that we then need capacitation of this supply chain, from how they farm, from the inputs themselves, from the mechanization as well, to make sure that we are able to get the products on time, without really putting a lot of cost to our suppliers. They also do not have cold chain. So most of them, by the time they give you the harvest, then the quality is already gone. So you then need to look at all the gaps. By the time it leaves a rural area to where we have to be processing, the quality is already being compromised. So we need to look at all of that and make sure that they are also capacitated in terms of the A to Z of growing up until delivering to our factories. The intervention itself, it was not only a challenge in terms of the growing aspect, but it was also a challenge in terms of the factory aspect, because we also had to make sure that we upscale in terms of the factory that we have for dehydration. And one of the things that we also learned very early on is that the banks did not have appetite to take the risk, and we started having to look at other funders to come into play to give us, the funding. And I must say that the partners that we have in terms of IDH with the FarmFit have been very much helpful in terms of that. And also, we're moving into with Unilever, now having taken the role of a direct funder as well, to make sure that they also fund the scaling up of the machinery as well, which is something that from a normal bank we probably would have not gotten, but if we did, it would have come at a very high interest rate. And that is the kind of partnership and the challenges that, if we then have to scale up on localization, that the partners will be faced with, and they have to be willing to partner to be able to remove those challenges from small businesses like ourselves.
Thank you, Mahapa. Patty, I'll turn to you now as head of agricultural services at Nestle for Central and West Africa. We've heard from a number of different perspectives, both some of the challenges as well as the critical importance of local sourcing. It's been mentioned, particularly in Christian's note, but I'd love to hear your reflections, particularly in the current context we're in. How is this unique year and the challenges of the COVID pandemic changing the importance of local sourcing, both complicating it and perhaps making it more important in some way?
Okay, I think let me start on this way. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Local sourcing is in line with Nestle global ambition to improve 30 million livelihoods in communities directly connected our business and activities in Africa. So also in CWAR, we want to be recognized for enhancing quality of life and contributing healthier future with providing affordable and accessible nutrition. So to achieve that, we set target ourselves to increase local sourcing. Where we are today is around 60%, and we want to be 72% in 2022. To achieve that, this is really also aligned with our creating shared value approach. On the community side, it is a kind of way of investing significant resources in local farms, SMEs, and economies in Africa. So to achieve that, we seen the great opportunity to work with the local to work with the private public partnership, in like we work with IDH in the Grow Sustainably Africa, and we work with AGRA with the Youth Entrepreneurship Program in Africa. So we have a great opportunities, to develop, and then to farmers and SMEs like Madam Yemisi, he's here, one of our suppliers in Nigeria, where we have actually the two project is going on side by side. So I think this partnership will bring value to our current suppliers and potential suppliers. First of all, the supplier and technical and staff capacity will increase to serve high demand of multinational companies like Christian mentioned. The quality, reliability, and the speed of the execution is the one of the challenge when we work with the local farmers and suppliers. So to achieve that, we strongly believe that to capacity building and capability building of the technical staff in our suppliers in SMEs, and also to improving their process and quality of the raw materials is the one of our responsibilities to work shoulder to shoulder, and also another side to reaching the farmers, because we strongly believe that high quality finished products can be only produced with the high quality raw material. So therefore, from all cases like grains and cassava, we work through SMEs and aggregators. So therefore, they have the strong link with the farmers. So we work together with those SMEs and aggregators, together with the partners, as mentioned, like AGRA and IDH, to reach them and then to train the farmers to select the right quality of the raw material, first of all, and to use the right quality of input, which is not harmful for the human, and which is not harmful for the nature as well, to get the high quality services, and where the farmers and communities can get the maximum benefit also in this entire supply chain. I think as again the previous speakers are mentioned that during this critical period of time, local sourcing is very important, because you may have faced the challenges of transport, you may have faced the challenge of the foreign currency unavailability in the different countries, so therefore, and then also transport time from if you are importing the raw material from the abroad. So this can be the big challenge. So therefore, I think to working with the local suppliers, and we call them as a business partners, which means that we think long term, which help us to design our strategy long term, which gives confidence to suppliers. And when they get the confidence, they can invest and improve further. So we strongly believe that we grow together with our suppliers, and then where they have see the gap from the technical side, and particularly on the good manufacturing practices, good good quality laboratory practices and safety and environment, you know. So those kind of activities and trainings we provide them. Particularly also we are working together with the Nestle responsible sourcing guidelines. You know, it's not everything that you just produce and then sell, but also we should respect the environment, we should respect the people, we should respect the human being. So therefore I think it's the local sourcing becoming very, very important day by day to continue the business in Africa and all over the world as well.
Sorry, struggling with the mute button. Thank you for that, Patty. I think an insightful comment. Looking at the questions coming in, the first one that came in, I will generalize. It was specific, but I'll generalize. You know, for those on the call who are running SMEs in this sector, and I'll invite Keba to be part of this question as well. What makes for an ideal potential partner? Right. So if a small enterprise in the agribusiness space is wondering how can they plug in, what would be the question you would ask about, you know, how they may be relevant or may fit into what you're respectively trying to do? I'll open it up. You know, let any one of you come in with some reflections, either from the MNC side or Keba from your perspective as IDH. And indeed, Mahapa and Yamisi, having actually been through this journey, what do you think would be critical characteristics?
Can I invite? Shall I invite? Let me see, Mahapa, or do you want me to take this, James?
Well, I think everyone would love to hear from you, and then we'll try and get a few perspectives. But actually, from your perspective, it would be useful to hear, Keba.
I think one of the most important is that do you have the patience that is required to get this thing going? Because if you do not have patience, if you're looking for a short gains in business, this type of business is really difficult. It's a long-term, requires courage, time, investment, and of course, having the capability to look at the quality, building the quality first, as opposed to looking at the price. So you have the best quality, you will be able to increase your price, and you'll be able to build a market that will be there for a long time.
Great. Yamisi, Mahapa, does this parallel with your experiences?
Yes, I think the most important thing in being a partner to companies like Unilever and Nestle, first is to understand that they have built the model of buying in for a long time, and they're not going to drop their standards just because you coming in as a partner. I think that's the first thing that you then need to understand. And with that comes the fact that, or a realization that therefore the learning costs are too high. You then would run into the initial stages of really going through losses instead of making profit, and that has been a reality, because you make the product, and sometimes, in most cases, you have to discard it because you've missed certain stages to be able to supply your customer. But what is important is to have a customer that is with you, because as you are going through this, a customer who is with you to give you the technical input in terms of the stages that you need, because that makes you to be encouraged. But at the same time, a partner like IDH who understands that you also can't have the cash flows, to be burning cash flow and dropping it somewhere else without recovering it, who can then come in with the institutional support in terms of funding to make sure that you stay afloat while you are still learning. But at the same time,
Great.
you also need to understand the bigger goal, because one of the things that we also appreciate is that Unilever and Nestle and all the multinationals, they are not partnering with us so that we alone can benefit. So they partner with us so that through us, we are able to make sure that the smallholders can benefit. So it's a whole value chain, upgrade. So you as a partner used to invest in putting the energy of going through those smallholders and growing them up. And I must say, it takes nights and days of going into areas that you are even afraid of, sleeping in places that you wouldn't have, and analyzing areas where you then realize why the smallholders have challenges that they have, where that a big truck which has to do distribution will never even access those farms,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that
So
when
that,
you come back, yeah.
James, if I may
Yeah.
add to this.
Foko,
For
please.
me, there's three things for me. One is ambition, two is perseverance, and three is trust. Let me explain. Ambition, we shouldn't set a different standard for Africa. Africa needs the same standard as everywhere in the world, and that's a high quality standard, and it's safe food. And I think that we all agree that it needs to be safe, nutritious food that we're trying to bring to the market in our case, and I think in the case of Unilever and Nestle, that's the same thing. The second thing is perseverance. It's already been mentioned a couple of times. It will not come overnight. But what we see is aflatoxin levels in 2 years can drop significantly when you want to together. When you set the ambition high, when you have the perseverance, then it can work. And then the third thing of trust, what we see, and it was already mentioned by one of the other speakers, we are all confronted with side selling. So the companies around the table here, the buying companies around the table, are all used to having longer term agreements. So you can start building together, you can start optimizing together, you take the inefficiencies out of the value chain. And that is something that we all need to start recognizing that is for now the better way forward. So things like side selling, so the lack of trust in the system, the lack of trust in your partner, and I'm trying to get a smart shorter term deal because now I'm off better today, that is not wise. And we need to keep on repeating, all of us together, that the integration will in the end help move things forward. And so let's set the ambition high. Let's all be in it together. Let's have the perseverance to make it a success, and let's keep on trusting each other. So then we weather it out. And I think that is for me the keys to success.
Fantastic. Listening to you, Foko, and listening to all of the questions and comments. Yemisi, did you want to come in?
Yes. And maybe just to add one or two additional points.
Please.
We have been supplying Unilever and Nestle for about 10 years now. And we actually started from the scratch. And we decided that was where we wanted to play our game from the beginning. And so we decided that we were going to go all out for the best quality ever. So if you want to play the game with the multinationals, you must be determined to go for the best quality. If you get your quality right, it's easier for you to negotiate price because they know, oh, your quality is as good as what you would get from somewhere else or from anywhere, any other part of the world. So for me, quality is number one. The number two thing that have made us to be able to have this long relationship with the multinationals is trust. Like he said, if you have to make up your mind to go those full hog, you must build that trust where they can depend on you. So when we sign contracts at the beginning of the year, we decide to say if we are producing 10,000 tons of products in a year, we sign the contract with 2 or 3 multinationals, and that's it, no more. So we know that this product is going to this person, this product is going to this person, and they can trust us. They can plan with us. So over the last 10 years, we've been improving our quality and our quantity every year, knowing that they are available to buy. So we can do our cash flow. It's easier for the bank to provide additional funding, additional working capital, knowing that we have such market to be able to take up our product. I will say that this is the only way to grow Africa. If Africa has to grow from where we are, then we must engage in investing in small businesses that we in turn invest in the smallholder farmers, so that the whole community can benefit. Where we are today, we started with about 100 farmers. We are well above 5,000, 6,000 farmers today, going over 5,000 hectares of farmland just from 100 hectares, because of continuity, trust, availability of market provided by the multinational. The effect of IDH cannot be overemphasized in the whole value chain, because the cost of getting smallholder farmers to supply is a whole lot. If you throw it into your business as a small startup business, it really can shake you and sometimes can even get you off the balance. So the funding from IDH and the like provide the little cushioning effect that we need to be able to provide extension officers to go into the farms, to provide the logistics, the training partners, and even soft loans like fertilizer and chemicals to some smallholder farmers. All of this put together have helped us to be able to increase quality, quantity, volume, and even the quality as well, because sometimes we also get support for training from the multinationals for our staffing to be able to do better jobs. So in all of it, I think and I believe this is the way to go for Africa. I believe this is the only way we can be able to be self-sufficient for food, for raw material, by ensuring that we invest in the small and medium scale businesses that are also linked to smallholder farmers, so that together the whole community can grow together.
There's a perfect pivot from there, Yemisi, thank you, to what is going to be my last observation and question. The good news is everything I'm hearing here suggests this is not CSR. There are good strategic and commercial reasons to be investing, as you have said, in building up these African supply chains. And we've heard it from Fatih, from Poco, from Christian, and in both yours and Mahapa's experiences as operators on the ground. The flip side is, if it's such a commercially logical thing, what is the role of donors? And indeed, what is it that we're seeking from investors as well in terms of coming in? And Keba, I want to start with you on this as the last question, because we do have donors and funders and investors on the line. You know, what is the narrative and the story for what is the difference that they can make in this space as maybe a closing point, and then I'll quickly give the other panelists the last word. Keba?
Sorry, I was a bit. I would also like you to invite Vanessa on that question. I think it's extremely important to have donors in this, because what we are lacking mainly in Africa is affordable finance for especially SMEs and farmers. There are plenty of schemes, financial schemes all over Africa, but the expense, the cost, it actually means a lot more for smallholder farmers and the SME to be able to take that cost. So if we have affordable finance, definitely that is what we need. And how do we get affordable finance? It's for donors to be able to support in blended finance mechanisms. I think Vanessa perhaps can add a little bit more of what AGRA is doing in this space, but I think it's really important to have that. Affordable finance for me is the key.
Thanks for the lateral pass, Kebe, and I'll take that and just make a few quick remarks as we come into the last few minutes. I think, James, you've asked a really critical question. If there is a business case, why are we still looking for development funding and financing? And I think there is a business case. There's also a strategic imperative. We can't continue to be trading across continents the way we've been relying for so many years without having more diversified sources. I think Christian's description of relying still on a 60-40 balance between imported and locally produced supplies, the struggles, if it takes 2 or 3 years to get aflatoxins reduced to quality levels, who funds that 2 to 3 year phase of transition that Foucault described, right? And so I think we're still really operating in a risk mitigation and extended ramp up. And then we also have so many collection points. I think this is something that everybody has struggled with. Unilever, Nestle, even AIF in Rwanda, even if you're set up as well as Yamisi is in Nigeria with trying to aggregate herself on the cassava, that cost of aggregating from so many smallholder farmers to the 5-ton truck to the 10-ton truck, the additional burden of logistics is creating additional food loss. And also farm gate is where the prices come out, right? All the 10% additional logistics and the 10 or 15% food loss comes out of the farm gate. It's the farmer who's paying off of their production. So if we can get the yields up, if we can digital availability and reduce the cost of financing and asymmetry, as Keva has described so well, I personally think that it's still going to be a different kind of engagement between public-private partnerships. But don't forget the governments. Everything we're talking about is completely dependent on national policy consistency. Someone said it really early on, consistent year-on-year national policies, which are really enabling businesses and farmers to do what they need to do. And this is something that every country that we're working in is struggling with. We talk about an African continental free trade area, regional food markets, and increasing the market sizes so that the production costs can also come down in every country. And James, all of your consultants have run those numbers 1,000 times. I'm the last person who can be telling you what you know so well, but this, the aggregated market size increasing, the regional food trade, lowering the cost of delivery is only going to benefit consumers. And now we're talking here this week about feeding cities, right? What about the urban poor as well? This is something that we've only begun to touch on. So fantastic panel. I really, really think we should continue this platform and grow it even further and really, really work together on the sourcing across so many more countries. And I'm sitting here in Kigali. I can tell you, in spite of all, a couple COVID negative tests, and we're still traveling and still moving. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Vanessa. Much as that would be a fantastic last word, I do want to ask each of the panelists to give us one last sentence each as the final word on why those listening, those still on, should engage with this effort and with this platform, or what they would like to see from it. We'll just go in reverse order as a way to close out. That means we'll start with you, Fatih, if that's all right. What would really help move things forward in your mind? Or, you know, if there was one ask you could make to the 60-odd people still on the line?
I think it's the most important part is the commitment from the both sides, you know, and then working together to achieve the, like we are talking today, to quality. We are talking about, you know, to reliability and speed of execution. These are the three main criteria. I think we need to work shoulder to shoulder with the SMEs, with the partners, to really increase the local sourcing. Companies like Nestle, which I am representing today, we are 100% committed to increase the local sourcing. We are here, and then we like to continue to work and looking forward ahead to bring the value to the Africa. I strongly believe that we can feed the Africa what we produce in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatih. Mahaba, one ask in a minute or so.
I think it will take an intentional, committed partnership from the off-taker, agro-processor, and the whole value chain to make this thing work. And we need to work very hard, you know, as a partnership to make sure that it works.
Fantastic. Thank you. Christian,
Yeah, thank
You're
you.
on
I
mute,
think that
Christian.
can
We can hear you now.
So,
We can hear you now.
I strongly believe that the partnership we have with IDH, and it's working. And I'm sure, and I'm very clear about the fact that GSA have cracked it. It's the right models. We have the right models, and we have demonstrated that it works. We need to accelerate. We must make sure that we have more donors, more companies joining the clubs, and we need to make sure that more we're going to create scale, more we're going to create in Africa, much more local products for all the industry. And we've demonstrated that it works. We committed to that. We have invested. So we just want to make sure that we're not alone, and then more we will be, better it will be.
Fantastic. Yemisi.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Now we hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, good. Yeah, I believe that this is working already because some companies are already committed to providing consistently this raw material that the multinationals need. And also, these companies have been linked to smallholder farmers over 10 years, some over 15 years. All we need to do is to scale it up. We don't need to unwind the wheel. Look at the pathway that we have used to be able to get to where we are. And what are they? We have the donors providing the soft landing for us to be able to reach more farmers. And then we have the buyers committed to providing the uptake. All we need to do is to scale up this, make available more donations, or let me say more funding to be able to reach greater number of farmers, so that we don't have only the big farms owned by 2-3 people only, so that the value chain is complete. Down the pyramid, thousands and millions of farmers should benefit and grow the raw material for us to produce. And then it also goes up to produce the finished product. I think with this, in about 5 to 10 years, if we are committed to scaling up this, then we'll be able to grow our food, eat our own food, produce the product produced by our own raw material that is locally produced in Africa.
Thank you, Yemisi. And finally, Foko.
Yeah, I already said, of course, a number of things that I think are important. To go at least from the push into the pull is a very important one. The other thing that also goes back to your last question around the role of donors, and for instance, also the very positive and very important role that IDH plays in all of this is risk reduction. I think that is a big thing for everybody, and you see that now everybody is putting in a bit of a risk premium. Finance puts in a bit of a risk premium. The suppliers are putting in a bit of a risk premium. That drives up the cost to a level that is not desirable. So I think if the donors would come in and help reduce that risk, then everybody can actually price what they need to price and not overprice because there's a risk of defaults or there's a risk of climate, or there is not a risk that people are not willing to take. And so let's work together in understanding the risks and then mitigate them so that everybody can come in with their minimum requirements with regard to profitability, and then we can grow much faster than what we are doing today.
Great, thank you. In closing then, and I know we're a few minutes over, and thank you everyone for staying all the way through. I would have to reflect from my perspective, and having worked across a range of development sectors, through Dalberg and elsewhere, you are seldom seen as clear a case, for scalable developmental intervention. There's a clear market demand. There's a clear commercial logic. There's a clear set of forces that are pushing for greater local sourcing of agro-produce. And the sheer number of smallholder farmers and entrepreneurs we can affect is essentially limitless. And so perhaps the last observation is these types of instances where you have a working engine that can just take resources and turn them into impact are not that common. And when they do come up, it's good to just build on the momentum. And so with that, I'll thank you all, Foko, Yemisi, Christian, Mahapa, Fatih, Keba, and Vanessa, for all of your remarks and your contributions to the discussion. and to all of you, the participants, for joining this conversation within the deal room. Hopefully there are some links that have been made and some deals that will follow. For those questions that we did not get to, there will be materials or connections being posted in the deal room for in terms of additional information and so forth for follow-up. But once again, thank you everyone, and wishing you a fantastic week and an enjoyable and fruitful AGRF.
Thank you so much, James.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.